give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a go. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net.
Hello everybody, welcome to Taff's Words. This is quite aptly put, happy clapper. I've been one of them all season. Yeah, I've criticised the club, well not the club but the team, as and when I feel as though they deserve it, as anybody should. But then let's just say I'm not in amongst all the doom mongers or the Flynn outs or the negative people on the county chat and the message board and all that. I've not been part of that, of course. Yeah, so thanks for joining me for this. I'm going to go through a few things, but first of all, I'd like it if you're not a subscriber, could you subscribe? Could you like the video? And I want to get some engagement on this, so please leave a comment based on the subject matter I raise on this, or if there is anything you'd like for me to discuss in future Task Words, feel free to drop a suggestion. I'd be happy to pick up on any subjects that you guys feel worth bringing up. So, as I said, I've called this video Happy Clapper. Because for me, I've been in support, I've had belief in the manager and the team when things have been tough to turn things round. And, you know, let's just say I've been a big fan of the way that we played football this season. We've adopted a great principle. We have, in some instances, had to revert back to the direct physical style that we've been used to the last few seasons. But that's only been circumstantial, not a particular choice, you know, because we feel as though that's the best way forward or anything like that. But the one thing I wanted to raise is that the League Two standard this year, for me, is the strongest League Two I think I've ever seen. Being the closest quality gap between top and bottom. So bottom of the league was Grimsby / Southend. I can't think who actually finished bottom off the top of my head. I've not been looking at that part of the table, to be honest with you. But for me, I feel as though a lot of the teams at the bottom have shown some good quality. For example, Barrow looked impressive in the two games we played against them, for example, and they weren't far from bottom. Although Scunthorpe were poor, Grimsby were poor this season, Southend weren't great, but they still managed to get some big results against some of the bigger clubs. I mean, you look at Barrow did the double over Cheltenham, the champions. You know, and Barrow were one of the relegation contenders. I mean, Colchester were dragged down into relegation. Mansfield, with the money that they've thrown at their club, and into their squad, didn't manage to do that well. They were looking at a playoff push right at the end, but they couldn't do anything. Bradford were poor, but we're going to get into that. The biggest underachievers for me, Scunthorpe were a massive underachiever when they were expected to do quite well. Colchester finished in the playoffs last season and have looked a strong outfit in League Two for the last few years. They, down in relegation, Bradford were one of the key favourites at the beginning of the season for promotion. They finished around about mid-table. Southend, of course, relegated from League One last season, ended up getting relegated. And of course, Mansfield, possibly one of the biggest budgets in the league this season. They finished bottom part of mid-table. So let's talk about Newport County, and the expectations of Newport County. I think a lot of fans, from what I could see, would have been happy for us to stay up. For some reason, we seem to be the only ones affected by COVID. Well, that's the mentality that radiated from certain comments made across social media, as if we're fucked because we can't sign anyone. Well, surely no one can really sign anyone. Not anyone of worth, at least, anyway. But I think the salary cap was a big part in keeping League Two a level playing field, which was probably a big reason, a massive factor in where I've said about the closest quality gap from top to bottom. So Newport County. I'm going to talk about some of the drop-offs during the season as well. I'll come to that actually. So Newport County were 33-1 to win League Two. We were placed in, as the 14th best team according to Sky Bet. So mid-table was what we would expect to finish. Funny enough, where we finished last season, near enough. They expected more of the same. We're not exactly going to bring anyone of major quality that's going to turn us into a better team or anything like that. And of course, Flynn likes his direct style, which isn't going to, be promotion worthy. Our estimated budget this season, there was a lot of talk about us apparently having a top 3 budget, which I knew was shite, to be honest. Estimated on transfermarket.com, we were the 11th best, well, not the 11th best, but 11th highest, which was higher than I thought, to be honest with you, if estimated budget. Higher than I thought, but still at the same time, we're still only 11th in the budget. I know it's only estimated. It's just going to be a give or take a couple of spots, but if anything, I'd give or take it downwards more than upwards. But we were far from having a top 3 budget. If you look at some of the clubs that are in there and some of the money that some of them clubs have got, there's no way we had the money just because of a couple of cup runs. No chance. A lot of talk about Flynn the manager with Lenny Lawrence leaving at the beginning of the season, which I touched upon in previous videos. Flynn is fucked and all that. Will be found out and stuff like that. Like I said, the proof was obviously going to be in the pudding. Like I said, a lot of people would be happy to stay up. Apparently our recruitment was shit, although a lot of people were happy with the Liam Shepherd signing. There didn't really seem to be much else that people were particularly happy with except for the Brandon Cooper loan. But apparently a lot of people were asking who's Scott Twine. He couldn't get into Swindon's team last season. Why would he be any good for us? He couldn't get into a League 2 team last year. People write people. That's the thing about Newport. We write players off. Our fans. We write players off when we sign them, if they haven't got an impeccable record at previous clubs. Sometimes some people just don't fit well in some clubs, and sometimes some people do fit well in some clubs. And thankfully, we signed a majority of players that tended to fit well. Obviously, there was a few recruitment issues for me, which were to come to light during the season. But for me, I think our recruitment was great, but a lot of people thought it was crap. And then, like I said, we were talking about the biggest underachievers during the season. One thing Newport County didn't do was drop off, but we're going to go more into detail on that. But you look at the likes of Carlisle, Salford, Crawley, Exeter, all doing well at the beginning of the season, all dropped off and didn't get anywhere near where they wanted to. Crawley were actually listed by a Sky pundit as the best League 2 team he'd seen that season because they had such a strong home record and they fell off. The one thing we never did was completely fall off the boil, within that promotion race. So that was it, looking at how things finished at the end of the season and how things were perceived to be from the beginning of the season. Let's go to during the season. So at the beginning we had an amazing start. We won in many different ways. We won easily with great football. We won hard where we had to dig deep. We made the right subs who came on and made the right impact and things like that. So we were winning games all the time. And it was looking like we were going to be dead certs for a top 3 finish, possibly even title contenders. Like I say, the cup runs were great. We had a great record in League 1. But there was the one game I always called the turning point, which was Leyton Orient away. We were winning 1-0 from a Jamie Proctor goal. And then, out of nowhere, bang. We were the better team in the first half, winning 1-0. Second half, we lost 2-1. And we didn't actually add any more attempts at goal during the second half. We were completely and utterly outplayed. And that's, for me, I don't feel as though we really recovered from that particular moment. So that was not that day was June, December, so it was close to the January transfer window. Well, I've got 4 listed here, but I thought of a 5th player who got recalled in January. Scott Twine and Cooper were the most notable ones. Proctor was a contender for a striker, and Jamie Devitt, of course, came on and did well in certain games. Psycho Jane as well, I thought was a handy player who was unlucky with injuries while he was with us. So the challenges, that's basically what I'm outlining there, is the challenges that were brought upon Michael Flynn. So losing those players and having to replace them. Cup runs were obviously heavy on the legs. I mean, we got to the FA Cup 3rd round. We had to play 3 games in the Papa John's Trophy, and of course we went a long way in the Carabao Cup as well. So we played a lot more games by that point than what any of the other teams in League 2 had played. And of course the pitch deteriorated a lot quicker because the COVID prevented the relaying of it last summer, so the pitch got a lot heavier on the players, and then we had to adjust our style, which we were used to from our great, attractive, attacking, possession-based football with some pressing. We then had to revert back to the old ways of lumping it upfield to the big man. Unfortunately, that big man was Ryan Taylor and not Jamil Matt this time. The January recruitment was bad, apparently. Yeah, okay, so Maynard, Telford and Evans, you can't really say that they were successful players, but you look at like Aaron Lewis, Hartigan and Farquharson as good signings. Hartigan obviously coming on a little bit later on, but for me, he's been a big part of the second half of our season, especially towards the end. So we went on that bad run where we'd only accumulated, I think it was 12 points out of 45, following, I think, that Leyton Orient loss. Yeah, of course it's a bad run, but thankfully we had a great run before that. We'd established a good style of football and we were on top of things. But the one thing, the games were being won by the likes of Brandon Cooper and Scott Twine and Jamie Devitt and Proctor. Having those players helped us win those games, but not having them and having to bed new players into the squad, we were losing that little bit of quality that would win us those games. So you could understand why our form dipped. It wasn't because Flynn had lost the plot or anything like that. I mean, some of the crap that was coming out. Eventually we turned it round. We maintained a good bit of form. And where I've mentioned the drop-off clubs, Carlisle, Salford, Crawley, Exeter, we didn't drop off. We maintained our position. The one thing that people don't seem to gather is that there are other clubs out there. We're not just playing Team A, or AN other FC. That's not our opponent every week. Our opponent varies obviously every single week. We play someone different. And the thing is, whether that team is good or not never seems to come into contemplation when it comes to county fans evaluating a game. So if we lose a game, it always has to be because we were bad. Never ever because another team were good. Now, we played against a lot of good teams this season, and we failed to win games because those teams have played well against us. And the thing is, just because we're Newport County doesn't mean that we got a God-given right to beat those teams. There are times where we may not have played well. Maybe the other team didn't allow us to play well. We don't give any credit to another team for playing well against us. We always slag Newport County players off for not winning the game. So I think that's an important point to raise. So, like I said, mistakes were made. Tactics were sometimes bad. Team selection was wrong. Subs were made incorrectly, which cost us points. But eventually we got things right. We made great calls in the final games by keeping the same 11, making the right subs at the right time, and we got over the line and got a playoff place. So we're in the playoffs now. At the end of the day, we got projected 11th best budget in the league, projected by the bookies, who were usually experts in this kind of thing, to finish 14th. Fans wishing we would only stay up, because of what was going on. We finished in a playoff place. Not just that, we finished with our highest League 2 points tally of 73 and our highest overall position of 5th. So the county chat battles are there, and there's all jokes about humble pie and stuff like that. Yeah, we'll have a bit of a laugh about it, but there are people there who seem to be a bit butthurt that we did so well in the end because it couldn't validate their assessments of Flynn being bad. The Flynn 8 brigade. I mean, listen to some of it. Flynn 8, he'd lost the dressing room, taken us as far as he could. Luke Gambin, it's personal. God knows why. Has favourites. I could maybe give you that in certain team selections, but at the end of the day, if they're bad, they get dropped. And we've seen a lot of players get dropped for making mistakes through the season. And then if he was anywhere else, he would be sacked. I'm going to make a point here, just one simple point. Alex Ferguson did jack shit at Man United for 6 years, and then what proceeded after that was, nothing short but, domination of the English game during his entire reign at Man United from that point. But for 6 years, he did nothing. Should Alex Ferguson have been sacked? Or if you were a Man United fan, would you gladly take those 6 years of nothing for what happened afterwards? At the end of the day, loyalty is rewarded in football, both ways. And I feel as though we had to stay loyal to Michael Flynn because what he'd done previously has been nothing short of miraculous for this football club. So he's always got to get given that extra bit of time, and it's proven good because he finished in a playoff place. He finished 5th, our highest run. I mean, so he'd finished 5th in the league. It took 2 Premier League teams on penalties to knock us out of the 2 major cup competitions in England. Yeah, he faced challenges like no other, you know, with the players that we lost, with a lot of injuries, and a lot of people being fallen out with injury. It got to the point where we had no real midfield for about 5 or 6 games. You know, the red cards, I mean, some of them were a bit harsh, some of them were right, some of them were just errors in judgment. Who has a cluster of 5 red, no, well, I think it was 4 in 5 games that we had, or 5 in 6. Who has a cluster of red cards like that? All of them, you know, the majority of them for straight red card challenges, you know, which seen them out for 3 games. You got to take on those challenges. The pitch, for example, having to move home stadiums for 2 games. Those challenges, you know, I mean, you tell me a manager in world football who could say they could take those challenges on and still achieve with their clubs. No one. Absolutely pissing no one. So, like I said, at the beginning of the video, I called this Happy Clapper because I am a happy clapper and I'm proud to be a happy clapper. At the end of the day, I didn't lose faith in the lads. I kept my support, and thankfully there was enough supporters like it, and you know that obviously fed through to the guys because they didn't lose faith in themselves. I mean, I talked to some of these players. They've been absolutely positively, you know, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? I hate it when I can't think of a word. But convinced, absolutely convinced that we were going to at least finish in a playoff place this season. And they seemed convinced we were going to finish top 3. We ran out of time on top 3. I'm quite sure if there was another 5 games, we possibly would have pinched a top 3 spot. But at the end of the day, we had to readapt after, you know, it's like we had 2 different, it's like having nearly 2 different squads practically, you know, to see a season 8, you know, in comparison to what you started with. Turnaround in players this season has been ridiculous, and majority of it hasn't been in our control. And yeah, you know, it might have been a mistake for Tristan Abrahams and Carl Haikins to go out on loan, but maybe that's what funded bringing players like Hartigan and Lewis into the football club for us to do so well in the end. So, like I say, happy clapper, I'm proud, and I've got every belief that this team are capable of winning in the playoffs. Forest Green, I think, they won the last one. We owe them one, especially at home. We fucking owe them one at home because they always seem to batter us at home. And then in the final, we're either going to get Tranmere, where we got to set the record straight with, or it's the complete Ellison last laugh in the final if Morgan prevail past Tranmere. So as long as we can beat Forest Green, I really fancy us in that final. You can imagine we get to League One next season, winning the playoffs. That has got to be the most successful season I've ever been part of as a Newport County supporter. I mean, it's already up there because of the cup runs. You know, we had some great cup runs like 2 years ago. Unfortunately, we couldn't make that last step. We were robbed, I know. But look, at the end of the day, we are where we are. We've played some great football this season. We've had some real high moments. We had a few low moments. I think there's been a lot of games we've been unlucky with. I think there's been a lot of poor refereeing this season. I reckon we could have been a title challenger, you know, if not for certain things that just completely nutty didn't go our way. But it is what it is. We finished in a playoff place, which was a lot better than anyone expected. I think for anyone to be knocking the manager or knocking individual performances throughout the season, when you're never going to get everybody playing perfectly. These football players, the management, they're human beings, the board of directors, all human beings, not just human beings with feelings, but human beings with, you know, the ability to be human and make mistakes. You know, these people are not going to be impeccable. They're not robots. We can't be demanding, you know, the absolute fucking earth from them every time they set foot on a football field. But I guarantee you now that those players give everything for us, and we should appreciate them a lot more than what we do. So yeah, I reckon we should do that. Appreciate these players as they go into this playoff battle, and I'm quite sure they'll give everything. And we'll see that they're giving everything, and we can at least appreciate them for that, even if they don't make it over the line. Anyway, that's all I've got time for now. I've nearly rambled on for 20 minutes, so we'll call it time at that. Thanks for watching, and as always, cheerio for now, and up the county. Here we go, League One. I think we're going to do it.